The Somerton Man, the beach mystery that refused to die. Opening hook, black screen, the sound of waves crashing against the shore. A cold wind moves across an empty beach. Some mysteries are solved in days, others take years. But a few refuse to die. For more than 70 years, one of the world's strangest mysteries remained unsolved. A man was found dead on a beach. He carried no identification. No one knew his name. No one knew where he came from. And hidden in his pocket were two words that would puzzle investigators for generations. Tamám Shud. A phrase meaning finished. This is the story of the Somerton Man, the beach mystery that refused to die. The year was 1948. Australia was still recovering from the effects of World War II. Life was slowly returning to normal. On the evening of November 30th, people visiting Somerton Beach near Adelaide noticed a man sitting against a seawall. He appeared calm and relaxed. Witnesses later said he seemed to be watching the ocean. Nothing about him looked unusual. At one point, someone noticed him raise an arm slightly before letting it fall back down. The movement seemed insignificant. No one thought much of it. As darkness covered the beach, people went home. The man remained where he was. The next morning, on December 1st, another group of beachgoers spotted him. He was still there, in exactly the same position. This time it became clear that something was wrong. The man wasn't sleeping, he wasn't resting, he was dead. Police soon arrived at the scene. The body belonged to a man believed to be in his 40s. He was well dressed, a pressed suit, a tie, polished shoes. Everything about his appearance suggested professionalism and respectability. But there was one problem. Nothing about his appearance explained why he was lying dead on a beach, and that was only the beginning. Investigators began searching the man's pockets. They expected to find a wallet, identification, business cards, train tickets, something, anything. Instead, they found almost nothing useful. No passport, no driver's license, no identification papers, no wallet, no clues to reveal who he was. The more police searched, the stranger the situation became. Then they noticed something deeply unsettling. Every label had been removed from his clothing. His suit labels were gone. His shirt labels were gone. Even labels from other garments had been carefully cut away. This wasn't accidental. Someone had intentionally removed every identifying mark. Why? Was the man hiding his identity? Had someone else erased it? Investigators had no answers. Fingerprint records were checked. No match. Missing persons reports were reviewed. Nothing. Newspapers published photographs of the dead man. Thousands of people saw his face. Nobody could identify him. It was as though he had appeared from nowhere and vanished without a trace. As investigators continued examining the body, they discovered something extraordinary. Hidden inside a tiny pocket sewn into the man's trousers was a folded piece of paper. The pocket itself seemed unusual. Many people had never seen a pocket like it before. Carefully unfolding the scrap of paper, police found only two words printed on it: Tamám Shud. The phrase came from a famous collection of Persian poetry known as the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The words mean finished or ended. It was a strange message to find on a dead man. Where had the paper come from? Why was it hidden, and what exactly had ended? The mystery deepened. Police released information about the scrap of paper to the public. Soon afterward, a breakthrough occurred. A local man came forward with an astonishing discovery. He had found a copy of the Rubaiyat in the back seat of his car. The book had been abandoned shortly before the Somerton Man was discovered. When investigators examined the book, they found something incredible. The final page had been torn out. The missing section matched the paper found in the dead man's pocket. The book was connected to the case, but it revealed even more mysteries. Inside were strange handwritten letters, a sequence of seemingly random characters. Some believed it was a secret code. Others thought it might be a cipher used by spies. Experts attempted to decipher it. Cryptographers examined it. Researchers studied it for decades. No one could agree on what it meant. The message remained unsolved, just like the man himself. The timing of the case raised disturbing possibilities. Remember, this was 1948. The Cold War was beginning. Tensions between nations were growing. Espionage was everywhere. Governments feared hidden agents and secret operations. When news spread about an unidentified man carrying a mysterious code, many people immediately suspected espionage. Could he have been a spy? The theory seemed possible. His identity had been erased. The code couldn't be deciphered. No cause of death could be clearly determined. Even toxicology tests failed to provide a definitive answer. Some experts believed he had been poisoned. But if poison was used, it left no obvious trace. This only fueled speculation. Perhaps he was involved in intelligence work. Perhaps he was carrying secret information. Perhaps someone wanted him silenced, yet despite years of investigation, no evidence ever proved he was a spy. The theory remained just that, a theory, but it was one that refused to disappear. Then investigators uncovered another curious detail. Not far from where the Somerton Man was found lived a nurse named Jessica Thompson. Police discovered that she had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat. Even stranger, her telephone number was written inside the abandoned book connected to the case. Naturally, investigators wanted answers. When shown a plaster cast of the dead man's face, witnesses reported that Jessica appeared shocked. For a brief moment it seemed as if she recognized him, yet she denied knowing the man. She insisted she had never met him. Police questioned her repeatedly. Nothing conclusive emerged. The connection remained mysterious. Was she telling the truth? Did she know more than she admitted? Or was her reaction simply the shock of seeing a dead stranger? No one knows. The unanswered questions only made the mystery more fascinating. Years passed, then decades. Investigators came and went. Researchers continued searching for answers. Books were written. Documentaries were produced. Countless theories emerged. Some believed the Somerton Man was a secret agent. Others thought he was a sailor, a criminal, a lover involved in a tragic romance, or simply an ordinary man whose identity had somehow been lost to history. Every new clue seemed to create even more questions. The code remained unsolved. His name remained unknown. The mystery became one of Australia's most famous unsolved cases. And as the years passed, many people began to believe the truth would never be discovered. But technology was changing. Advances in forensic science offered new possibilities. Researchers began examining evidence using methods that didn't exist in 1948. DNA testing became increasingly powerful. Scientists hoped genetic analysis might finally reveal the man's identity. It was a difficult process. The remains were old. The evidence was limited. Yet researchers continued working. For years, patiently, carefully, determined to solve. For years, investigators searched for a single answer. But instead they found dozens of questions. Every clue seemed to point in a different direction, and every theory sounded believable, until the evidence simply disappeared. The most famous theory was the spy theory. The Somerton Man was found in December 1948. This was the beginning of the Cold War. The world was changing rapidly. Governments were spying on each other. Secret agents were operating across borders. And Australia had become an important strategic location for Western intelligence. Then came the strange details. A man with no identification. Labels carefully removed from his clothes. A mysterious coded message hidden inside a tiny piece of paper. And no one who could identify him. To many investigators, this didn't look like an ordinary death. It looked like someone trained to disappear. Some researchers even believed he could have been working for a foreign intelligence agency. Others suggested he might have been carrying secret information that was never recovered. But there was one major problem. No government ever admitted knowing who he was. No intelligence files clearly connected him to any spy organization. Decades passed, and the spy theory remained exactly that, just a theory. What if the Somerton Man had been poisoned? Medical experts noticed that some of the symptoms matched certain rare poisons. His organs showed unusual signs, but laboratory tests available in 1948 couldn't identify any specific toxin. Some toxicologists later argued that fast-acting poisons could disappear from the body before they were detected. Others believed natural causes were still more likely. Without modern forensic technology, no one could say for certain. The poison theory became one of the strongest possibilities. But once again, there was no proof. Another explanation was much simpler. Perhaps he had taken his own life. Think about it. A lonely man arrives in a city, no identification, no family, no luggage revealing his identity. Then, he's found dead on a quiet beach. To some investigators, it looked like someone who wanted to disappear forever. But even this theory had serious flaws. No suicide note was ever found, no poison bottle, no witness saw what happened during his final hours. Everything was based on assumptions, not evidence. Then came another chilling possibility. What if the Somerton Man wasn't really the person everyone was searching for? What if his entire identity was fake? His clothing labels had been removed. His fingerprints matched nobody in official records. His suitcase revealed almost nothing about his real life. Some believed he had deliberately erased every trace of his past, creating a completely new identity. If that were true, then perhaps nobody could identify him, because the person they were looking for had never truly existed. It was an incredible theory. But once again, investigators couldn't prove it. Then the investigation took an even more emotional turn. Some detectives believed there was a woman connected to the mystery, someone who may have known exactly who he was. A local nurse became the center of attention after investigators discovered unusual links between her and the dead man. She denied knowing him personally, yet several small details made detectives suspicious. Could they have shared a secret relationship? Was he trying to meet her before his death? Or was it nothing more than an extraordinary coincidence? Even after years of investigation, no answer could ever be confirmed, and that became the story of the Somerton Man. Every theory sounded possible. Every clue created hope, but every path ended in another dead end. The deeper investigators searched, the more impossible the mystery became. But the most heartbreaking part of this mystery wasn't the way he died. The saddest part was that perhaps the world never truly knew him while he was alive, and after his death his identity disappeared completely. Just imagine, a man spends his entire life living, dreaming, building relationships. Perhaps he had a family. Perhaps he had close friends. Perhaps there was someone who loved him deeply. And then one day, he dies. But no one comes forward to claim him. No family. No friends. No relatives. Not even a single person who could simply say, "I knew him." The police published his photograph in newspapers, appealed to the public for help, but every effort failed. It was as if that man had never existed at all. His past, his identity, his relationships, everything seemed to disappear into history. That is why the Somerton Man became more than just an unsolved case. He became a symbol of all the untold stories that may never be heard. A person spends an entire lifetime building an identity. But if one day, their name, their history, and every trace of who they were vanished forever, what would remain? Perhaps only one question. Who was he? But the story didn't end there. The years passed, then decades. Yet the mystery of the Somerton Man refused to fade away. Journalists returned to the case again and again. They re-examined old documents, interviewed witnesses, and searched for tiny details that might have been overlooked. Historians explored government archives, searched forgotten records, hoping that somewhere, hidden in history, was the answer to his identity. Then came the cryptographers. Their attention focused on the mysterious coded message found in his pocket. They proposed hundreds of possible solutions. Some believed it was a military code. Others thought it referred to a book, while some even believed it was a secret love message. But to this day, no interpretation has ever been universally accepted. Time moved forward, the internet arrived, but the mystery remained. Soon, true crime communities from around the world became fascinated by the case. Thousands of people analyzed photographs, studied maps, searched historical records, and created their own theories. Every new clue brought fresh hope. But every new lead eventually ended in another dead end. It slowly began to feel as though the Somerton Man had taken his true identity with him. Forever. One of the world's greatest mysteries seemed destined to remain unsolved forever. But just when it seemed that this mystery could never be solved, a new scientific breakthrough brought fresh hope to a case that had remained cold for decades. For the very first time, science began searching for the truth behind the Somerton Man. Had the world finally come close to discovering his real identity? We'll find out in the next chapter. For decades, the Somerton Man case remained one of the world's most baffling unsolved mysteries. Investigators came and went. Technology evolved. Generations passed. Yet the mystery refused to disappear. Then, decades later, modern science finally offered a new path forward. Advances in forensic technology gave researchers tools that investigators in 1948 could never have imagined. Scientists returned to the evidence. Old records were re-examined. Historical documents were digitized. And DNA became the key to unlocking the past. Researchers used genetic genealogy to search for possible family connections. Thousands of records were analyzed. Family trees were reconstructed. One clue led to another. Slowly, the picture became clearer. After years of work, researchers made a remarkable discovery, a possible identity. The investigation continued. More records were examined. More connections were verified. And eventually, more than 70 years after his death, the unknown man finally had a name: Carl Webb. The man who had been known only as the Somerton Man was no longer anonymous. He had a name, a face, and a place in history. But the discovery raised a new question. Did knowing who he was actually solve the mystery? Not entirely, because identifying a person is very different from explaining their death. Records suggested that Carl Webb was connected to Melbourne. He worked as an electrical engineer. By all appearances, he seemed to live an ordinary life. There was nothing obviously extraordinary about him, nothing that immediately explained the mystery surrounding his death. Yet many questions remained unanswered. Why had he travelled to Adelaide? Why was he found alone on Somerton Beach? Why was he carrying no identification? And what happened during the final days of his life? The answers remained elusive. Even so, the identification of Carl Webb attracted worldwide attention. For the first time in decades, the case seemed closer to a solution. But as often happens in great mysteries, every answer created new questions. And that brings us to the theories. Over the years, countless explanations have been proposed. Some are plausible, others are highly speculative, but none have been proven. One of the most famous theories is espionage. Supporters of this theory point to the coded message, the missing identification, and the tense atmosphere of the early Cold War era. Could Carl Webb have been involved in intelligence work? Could he have been carrying secrets that were never meant to be discovered? It is an intriguing possibility, but no definitive evidence has ever confirmed it. Another theory focuses on poison. Some experts have suggested that he may have been poisoned by a substance that was difficult to detect using the forensic methods available at the time. This theory attempts to explain the lack of obvious injuries. Yet despite decades of analysis, no conclusive proof has ever emerged. Then there is the possibility of suicide. Some believe that Carl Webb may have chosen to end his own life. The mysterious words found in the case seem, to some, almost symbolic. But once again, there is not enough evidence to establish this theory as fact. Others believe that Carl Webb was murdered. Perhaps he became involved in something dangerous. Perhaps he knew something he should not have known. Or perhaps he crossed paths with the wrong people. It is a theory that continues to attract attention. Yet like every other explanation, it remains unproven. And so the mystery survives. Decades have passed. Investigators have retired. Witnesses have grown old. But the questions remain. Then there is the small piece of paper, perhaps the most famous clue of all. 2 words, Tamám Shud, a Persian phrase meaning finished. The paper had been torn from a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a discovery that only deepened the mystery, because the book itself contained another puzzle, a strange coded message, a sequence of letters, a message that has never been conclusively deciphered. experts, cryptographers, amateur code breakers. All have attempted to solve it. None have succeeded. Was it a secret message? A personal note? A meaningless coincidence? No one knows. And perhaps no one ever will. Today, Somerton Beach looks much the same as it did decades ago. The waves continue to roll onto the shore. The wind still moves across the sand. And visitors walk the coastline unaware of the mystery that unfolded there so many years ago. We now know the man's name, Carl Webb. But we still do not know why he was there, why he carried no identification, what the coded message meant, or how he died. Some mysteries are remembered because they were solved. Others are remembered because they never truly end. The Somerton Man remains one of them, a man alone on a beach, a life nearly erased from history, a torn piece of paper, a hidden code, and a death that still defies explanation. More than 70 years later, the mystery continues. Carl Webb finally has his name back. But his final secret remains locked in silence. Tamám Shud. Finished. For investigators, the identification of Carl Webb represented a historic breakthrough. For more than 7 decades, the man on Somerton Beach had existed without a confirmed identity. He had become a symbol of mystery. A case discussed by detectives, journalists, historians, and amateur investigators around the world. Many people had spent years trying to discover who he was. Some believed the answer would never be found. Yet modern forensic science achieved what generations of investigators could not. The discovery demonstrated how dramatically technology had changed since 1948. When the Somerton Man was first discovered, DNA analysis did not exist. Computers did not exist in the form we know today. Investigators relied on fingerprints, witness statements, and paper records. Today, researchers can examine genetic information and trace family connections across multiple generations. What once seemed impossible became possible, and yet, even after identifying Carl Webb, many of the most important questions remained unanswered. His identity solved one mystery, but several others survived. Researchers attempted to reconstruct the final chapter of his life. They searched through historical records, travel records, employment information, family connections. Every document provided another small piece of the puzzle. But the complete picture remained frustratingly incomplete. The final days of Carl Webb's life are still largely unknown. No one knows exactly what he was thinking. No one knows where he traveled before arriving in Adelaide. And no one knows what events ultimately led him to Somerton Beach. That uncertainty continues to fuel debate today. Perhaps that is one reason the case remains so fascinating. Most mysteries eventually fade from public memory. The Somerton Man did not. Instead, interest continued to grow. Books were written. Documentaries were produced. Researchers returned to the evidence again and again. Each generation hoped it might finally discover the missing answer. But every new discovery seemed to reveal another layer of mystery. The identification of Carl Webb was no exception. It was a major achievement, yet it also reminded everyone